Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Jessica Houston. I'm the admissions coordinator at Dodge College, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. This is our Dodge faculty panel. So before we get started, I just wanted to talk about our Zoom guidelines for today. Please make sure you're muted unless you're called on to unmute yourself. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. We do have staff prepared to answer your questions there as we go through our event, and there'll be an opportunity for Q&A towards the end as well. And so I'd like to introduce our panelists now. We have the Public Relations and Advertising Program Coordinator, Veston Rowe, the Broadcast Journalism and Documentary Program Coordinator, Sally Rubin, the Screenwriting Program Coordinator, Paul Wolanski, Associate Professor of our Film Studies Program, Nam Lee, and Dodge's Film Chair, James Dutcher. All right. So first question for our panelists. What is your professional background and what do you teach? We'll start with Sally.
Gosh, I can give you guys the short version of the professional background. I'm originally from Boston. I got into documentary filmmaking actually when I was in high school, and went to Tufts and then got my master's in documentary filmmaking from Stanford. And always had a background in mainly social justice, social issue documentary filmmaking, environmental documentary filmmaking. I worked as a documentary editor for about 5 years until I started teaching here at Chapman about 11 years ago. And yeah, I still make mainly social justice docs. I completed a film recently called Hillbilly, which is about media representation and the Appalachian region. That one's on Hulu. And yeah, I'm working on an animated documentary now that's entirely animated and driven totally by audio interviews with kids ages 5 to 10 talking about gender and identity. So that film will be coming out pretty soon. That's been actually a pretty convenient one to be producing during COVID because it's entirely virtual. Here at Dodge, I teach over 25 different courses. I recently tallied them up. Mainly I teach documentary editing, the documentary thesis classes, and then I also teach a lot of travel courses. I take students all over the world making films about different cultures. The class is called Social Nonfiction Methodologies, and that's a really fun international class. And then I also teach Community Voices, which is a program that is fully funded, and we have actually 3 different versions of the program. We have Community Voices America's Stories, and Community Voices Global Stories, and all of these different iterations of the program involve giving students usually between $15,000 and $18,000 to make a film about a relevant social issue, either here in the US or starting next year, we're going to be going global. We're actually going to be launching the course in Scotland. So that's the bulk of what I teach.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. Before I move on to our next panelists, if you could turn on your cameras, everyone here, that would be great so we can see your faces and we can interact with you, especially when we get to our Q&A portion. If you don't want to turn your camera on, that's okay too, but I highly encourage that. Also, if you want to mention the program that you're admitted to in the chat so we can see what students we have here, that'd be great. Veston, your professional background and what do you teach?
My professional background, I started out as I was going to be a journalist. I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein. I had done some investigative journalism pieces in college, but one of the articles got me an internship in our public relations office, and I fell in love with it. I went ahead and got my master's in journalism from the University of Oklahoma, then returned to my alma mater, which was Phillips University in Enid, Oklahoma, which is the cultural center of the universe for those of you who don't know. I worked there for almost 10 years in various capacities, left there as director of publications and director of public relations. Then I came to Chapman 32 years ago next week, as a matter of fact, when it was still Chapman College. And I came as the admissions publications coordinator. So I was in charge of creating the recruitment material for the university for a year, and then was promoted to a director of publications and creative services at the university. And I held that position for 20 years. We helped make the switch from being a small college, Chapman College, to Chapman University. My department created the window logo. We created the Panther logo. We helped create the image of an institution that Chapman became. I teach in the public relations area. I teach public relations writing, principles of PR, storytelling for business, and advanced public relations writing. So my focus is mainly on teaching writing.
Awesome, thanks, Festin. Nam?
Okay, hi everyone. It's really, really nice to meet you over this Zoom. My background is I am originally from South Korea. In the 1990s, I worked as a film critic and a journalist for about 10 years. And then I decided to, really, really delve into studying of films. So I decided to cross the Pacific Ocean to come to America in 2000. And I was accepted to University of Southern California School of Filmic Arts, Cinematic Arts, and I earned my master's and PhD degree at Critical Studies in Film School. And that was 2008. I wrote my dissertation on Agnès Varda, the French woman director. And then since 2008, I came to Chapman and began teaching here. So I mostly teach Korean cinema and Asian cinema. That's my research area. And I have recently published a book on Korean director Bong Joon-ho titled The Films of Bong Joon-ho from Rutgers University. But I also teach film and critical theories, film history, and it's a required class for all Dutch students, survey of world cinema, French cinema, basically all non-American cinema is at my hands. So I teach the world cinema mostly. So yeah, that's what I do.
Great, thanks, Nam. I also think it's a really good time to plug that you're going to be moderating Bong Joon-ho's masterclass that we have coming up, right?
Yes, actually, Bong Joon-ho was at Chapman. He stayed 2 nights on our dome 10 years ago. So he's coming back in 10 years. So his status has changed from a upcoming, global upcoming director to now he's like a big author, world director. So it will be nice to have him back.
Yeah, super exciting for that. Paul?
Hello, everybody. Background, I'm from upstate New York originally. I went to school in New York City at Columbia. On Tuesday nights, they had a series called Cinematheque, and they ran films by Akira Kurosawa. And I saw The Seven Samurai, and I was blown away by the idea that a film could be as vivid as that. It was as vivid as my dreams. And I decided to change from being pre-med. I went to the film school at Columbia. I studied writing, directing, made films, fell in love with editing and edited a whole bunch of films. After graduating, I ended up working in productions, directing films and in production independently in New York. I came out to California. I got offered a job to teach at USC, taught there for 13 years. It's a terrific film school. I'm happy to answer questions about it, but there's certain things about Chapman that are even better than USC. And after about 13 years there, I primarily focused on writing. I've written a bunch of movies and written and produced about 4 feature films in about the last 11 years. And this is my 20th year teaching at Chapman. And I think it's a great film school, a great place to come to school. In terms of what I teach screenwriting classes pretty much this. Right now I'm teaching particularly the thesis classes, which are the seniors, but I've taught almost every class across the program, both grad and undergrad in the screenwriting program, and also teach short film analysis. It's a short film class, which really is a lecture class, but it approaches it from the point of writing, because when you come to a film school like Chapman, USC is the same, great film schools are sort of studios that make a lot of short form content. So you'll have a chance to learn and study how to write for television, how to write features, maybe limited series, because these are becoming kind of dominant forms now, but it's also a place where there's huge amounts of short films, short productions, short form being made. It's a great opportunity to work with people, to collaborate, to meet people you may be working with your entire career, and to see your work made, because you learn a lot from seeing your scripts being actually realized, and you get a chance to sort of just grow in multiple ways as a writer.
Thanks, Paul. James?
Hi. I too am from upstate New York. That's it. No, I've been writing in one way or another for the last 30 years, I guess. I went to college, thought I was going to be an actor. That didn't work out so well. While I was doing that, I learned how to be a copywriter. Then I started to write comedy for a group that I could perform and write in, which led to studying screenwriting in grad school. After that, I wrote a bunch of sort of high concept comedy for a German production company for about 10 years. And then I segued into teaching. So I've been at Chapman since 2000 and then full-time since 2012. And I teach everything in the screenwriting department, the fundamentals classes, the feature classes, the TV classes, the analysis classes. That's what I do.
Thanks, James. All right, next question. Why should students choose your program? What makes your program stand out? We'll mix it up and we'll start with Beston.
Why should they choose our program? Well, first of all, it's very unique, which is a bad, don't say very unique because it's either unique or it's not unique. In the fact that, first of all, we're in a film school. There, as far as we know, there are no other public relations and advertising programs within a film school. Why are we in a film school? Well, think about it. Think about the last thing you saw on TikTok or on a YouTube video. Everything is visual. We were working on a visual medium these days, so that isn't in a film school. Another advantage of our program is that we have the public relations and advertising major. So you get a degree in advertising and public relations, but you can specialize by taking the PR track or the advertising track. So that gives you an opportunity to explore. And frankly, the two professions are becoming more and more intertwined. So I have students who are very interested in PR and they go out and they end up working in advertising and vice versa. Probably the most important thing, and the thing that your parents probably want to hear, is our graduates get jobs. And they get jobs in all sorts of fields. We have students who work for Netflix, for Hulu. We have them work for Warner Brothers and in the entertainment industry. We also have them working for ad agencies like 72andSunny, RPA, and Giant Spoon. So they get that, they get experience by doing internships in the classroom, and then they get jobs. And that's probably what makes us unique.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Beston. Paul.
I touched on some of it in the first question. I'd say what's a really strong reason to come to Chapman is the sheer amount of writing that you're required to do in the screenwriting program. So that, writing is one of those things where hopefully people already have done a lot of it before they're coming, at least have done enough recently that they know it's something they really want to do. We require, the first semester, there's only one writing class, but then from that point on, every semester is at least 2 writing workshops, so that every student is always working on at least 2 things at the same time, sometimes more projects than that. So there might be some semesters we might have 3 writing classes, especially if you take one as an elective. You get better by doing, you find out what you're good at by trying different things. Some people have the gift to make people laugh. Some people can't I can't really make people laugh, but I can make people cry. So, or I can scare people. So it depends, you got to try different things. As you find out what you're better at, you have a chance to sort of hone in and do better and better work and create a portfolio that's really strong. for later on, for graduation, in terms of impressing people, because you've got to impress people with your writing to get work. And there are support classes in the first semester. Students are writing short films and scenes. They're taking short film analysis, so they're seeing examples. So you're getting theory and then immediately have a chance to apply it. In the second year, you've got storytelling strategies. James teaches something, film script analysis. You're analyzing feature films at the same time that you're writing feature films. So constantly you're getting the theory, but you're being forced. You have lots of opportunities. You're forced to write all the time. And I think that creates an enormous amount of growth from the first semester through graduation. I see it in the students. I'd say that's probably the thing that Chapman does more than anything, require more writing of anybody, even much more required writing than, say, USC does.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Nam?
Okay, film studies. We will be changing the name of our program to Film and Media Studies to expand the scope of our discipline to include other medias like TV and new media and games, etc., to include emerging new media. And film studies stands out because it is the only program within Dodge College that is focused on researching and writing about films. So it's a foundational discipline for anyone who wants to have a career in film, whether an academic like me, or be a filmmaker or a critic, or if you want to be a film festival programmer or archivist or marketing person, etc. Knowing film history and to able to analyze film's elements is really, really important foundational knowledge. And through the film studies courses on film history, aesthetics, genres, special topics, world cinema, you understand cinema in relation to culture, history, technology, and aesthetics. And above all, by doing this, what is most important is you are able to develop your own keen eye to distinguish good films from not so good films. What makes a film really good and what works, and what are the elements that makes film really work and what makes film cinematic, etc. So you'll be able to say, mostly after watching a film, we say, did you like the film? Yes, I did. And that's not enough for film studies students. You have to add something else. Why the film is good, what about the image? What about the sound? What about the narrative? What about its aesthetics? How was the filmmaker using cinematic tools to, communicate with the audience, etc. So it's really important to have your own kind of a critical eye to evaluate certain films that you see. So like because we have to select films to watch in our classes, we mostly watch good films that left a mark in history, like, so to speak, masterpieces. So if you want to be a good filmmaker, you have to watch good films because you digest good things, then good things come out of you, right? So it's writing is the same, right? If you want to write well, you have to read good books. It's the same. So it's you not only watch good films, but you discuss what makes it good. And during that process, 4 years of analyzing and watching films, you really, really refine your own eyes, your own perspective to distinguish the films and how they work. So I think this is really, really important knowledge and skill to have in whatever you do with film. And recently I am teaching also video essays. So we are really conscious about what is going on. So now a lot of film critics and film scholars making their points by creating video essays rather than on paper. So yeah. Your critical eye is really important, and that's what we help you to develop and refine.
Thank you so much, Nam. Sally?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors that make our broadcast journalism and documentary program stand out. One is certainly its proximity, Chapman's proximity to LA. You know, other schools, USC, Loyola have that as well, but not all film schools have that. And I think that it just means that students are able to get internships either during the year or during the summer or interterms, where they're actually working in LA at actual production companies that very, very often hire our students post-graduation, especially because over the years, Chapman sends students up there. And, you know, we've really developed a name for ourselves as far as the quality of our students' work. We also have an internship requirement as part of the broadcast journalism and documentary major, and the faculty work really closely with our students to help secure really valuable, viable internships for you. So that's a big one as far as just sort of hireability after graduation. Another piece I think that contributes to that is just the makeup of our program and the curriculum. We're very focused both on theory, but also on crafts and developing specific technical skills. So with all of our students, especially sort of on the documentary side, at least, you know, we really encourage our students to become directors and producers, but then also make sure you have a technical craft, either editing or cinematography in particular, that makes you hireable. And I can truly say that all of our students post-graduation who want to be working in the field are. Definitely the facilities here at Chapman are amazing, just unmatched. We got a $3.6 million grant several years ago to build an entire building just for documentary film. So we have a few classes that are housed there from other programs as well, but it is specifically a documentary building. It's called the Documentary Center. We have a huge 60-person screening room with like a 20-foot screen, and that's where a lot of your documentary classes would be. So that is amazing, and then students are really getting kind of top-notch gear. The faculty, you know, are, I think, especially in our broadcast journalism and documentary programs, tend to be really actively working in the field. All of our faculty, both full-time and adjuncts, are active producers. And, you know, we do have quite a diverse faculty as well, women, folks of color, queer faculty. You know, I'm always proud of that piece in particular. I think that's really important. And then, yeah, you know, the curriculum and the way that our degree is laid out, we don't just have a documentary BFA or a broadcast journalism BFA. It's specifically a BFA in broadcast journalism and documentary. And the way we have the curriculum laid out, you know, you sort of start as a major, that's your major. And then as you move through your 4 years here, you can choose to emphasize in either documentary or broadcast journalism or not. You can remain kind of a generalist, and you know, your degree is in both of those disciplines. And I think why that's really nice is that for the documentary students, they're training in broadcast journalism with a focus on kind of being attuned to real world issues. You know, we're not just kind of auteurs wearing berets, wearing all black, trying to make creative films. Our students are really heavily involved kind of in the real world. And from the broadcast journalism side, they are learning those more maybe cinematic elements that you learn in our documentary classes. So I think that you know, the nature of our program serves our students really well. And then the two reasons that I left for last, I think, are in some ways the biggest reasons. I don't know another program in the country that either at the undergrad or grad levels have as many fully funded programs as we do, where as a freshman or a sophomore, you can get $18,000 to travel anywhere in the country making a film. We also have a distribution head for those films, specifically those Community Voices films, who works full-time for 6 months getting your films broadcast, festival success. You know, there's such a huge push. We have a relationship with a fabulous Orange County philanthropic family who really supports a lot of our nonfiction work here. So I think that's a really big piece. We have other funded programs as well. I'm in a teacher program this summer called Project W that's also fully funded, where a donor gave us money to make documentaries about women, inspiring women heroes. So, you know, students, all expenses covered, both for travel, everything involved with those productions. So that's, you know, really, really terrific. And then we also have other programs. We have something called the Seek Lens program, where students go all over the world making films about Sikhs in the diaspora. We had a program called Destination Africa for several years where students received full funding to go to Africa making films. So I think that, you know, those fully funded programs are really special and unique. And yeah, these international programs, since I started here, I've been involved in trips and have led trips where we've made films in France, Ireland, Japan, Iceland, Botswana, Singapore, the Philippines, Bhutan, and Nepal. You know, just Cuba, all over the world. And these are every summer and every interterm we offer these classes. So yeah, the opportunity to make documentaries internationally is really special and certainly unique to Dodge.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. I felt like you were name dropping all these countries. That's awesome.
Uh-huh.
James, so you are the film chair, and we do have a lot of students in the chat that mentioned they were admitted to film production. So do you mind telling us why students should join that program?
Sure. I have a sort of an umbrella statement first. I was reading this interview with, I think it was Kevin Smith, and he talked about having a choice in life to hang around with the why people or the why not people. And he was just saying, like, you got to hang around with the why not people, because you propose doing something and they're like, yeah, why not? And they do that thing. And I kind of feel like with a lot of things that people were talking about with their programs today, I think Dodge is full of why not people. Like, you know, the fact that NAM is teaching video essays, because that's a huge, I was reading this article about film TikTok the other day and how like so many people are communicating that way. And I feel like that is, you can see that playing out throughout the programs. So we're just a bunch of why not people. In terms of film production, you know, the obvious thing is there's a ton of amazing equipment. There's sound stages, there's all that stuff is at your disposal. Coming from the writing standpoint, I don't focus on that as much. I think it's cool, but it's not as important to me as you get an opportunity to make a lot of stuff, to explore story while you're also getting to play with the fun toys. We really stress collaboration. So for example, I don't know if anyone's in creative producing, but I'm teaching a class right now that has writers and creative producing students in it, and we're learning how to develop stories together. So we're talking about it from a creative standpoint, but we're also talking about it from, well, how would you produce that? How many, you know, like how many sets are there? How many actors are in there? How could we cut it down to make it affordable on this budget? And we really, and then those then go to the ones that are deemed good or producible or worthy, then are put into a portal that we have where you know, film production people who are looking to produce something, or creative producers who are looking to produce something, they can go to this portal and read the scripts and then connect with the screenwriter. So I think the thing that is making film production unique on top of our facilities is just the emphasis on collaboration, the idea that we really want to get people together working on projects to mirror the real world as much as possible. So I think that is really the major aspect. And also, like, for example, right now we have an animation project that's being shot using our new LED wall that is involving a film production student, an AVE student, and a screenwriting student, and a producing student, who are all working together to explore this new technology. And that, you know, that's an opportunity that is hard to come by. And in terms of being a why not person, I think Stephen Galloway is an excellent example of a why not kind of guy, because since he's gotten here, we've all been online, and he's just kept working on his agenda to make the school better, more current, more interesting. Our masterclass series, we've had Jason Blum, we've had Bryan Cranston, we've had just all these amazing guests come down, and not come to, we'll zoom in, and you know, they've been, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go to them, but I think they've been really fantastic. So I just see more of that in the future, and I think it's an exciting kind of, to tie everything up, an exciting why not place to be.
Great. Thank you all so much. So now I'd like to switch to our Q&A portion. I see we got some questions in the chat already, so I'll get to some of those. But I also want to mention that if you would like to ask your question on screen over video, you're more than welcome to. Please just use the hand raise feature in Zoom. If you don't know where that is, if you go to the participants button on Zoom, like on the panel, you'll be able to see like a little blue, or I think it's blue, a blue hand that you can raise virtually, and it'll show up for me and I can call on your name and you can unmute yourself. So the first question is for Paul. You mentioned a really well-known film school that's not Dodge. Do you mind talking about the screenwriting program and how it stands out specifically compared to other film schools?
Well, as I said before, there's the sheer amount of writing, so that you're really required to write a lot. And, you know, we had to laugh when people had to everybody had to socially distance. And I was talking to a writer friend of mine who's a very successful writer, and he said, you know, the life of a writer means you're always socially distancing. It's certainly something that's very familiar. You have to ultimately spend a lot of time at the computer, at the word processor, writing, and sometimes other things seem like they're more fun. So that it's more fun. I did a lot of production. Editing, that was fun because it's social. Editing was great fun. For me, it was as much fun as playing video games. I didn't have to. But writing is ultimately, I think, for me at least, the most deeply satisfying, because it's where you really create something out of nothing. It's really have to come up with something that didn't exist before and create it. And so that to have a supportive structure where you're constantly writing, you're writing multiple things, you're getting the theory, and at exactly the same time, you're getting the opportunity to practice it. I think that's what stands out. And also that it's spread across all 8 semesters. There's a lot of programs that tend to, and USC is one of them, they tend to sort of push some of the writing back, and they get it in their latter part of their career rather than spread evenly throughout. We really feel like you should start writing from your very first semester. You should be writing every week. There's an assignment, at least one every week, usually multiple assignments every week. You write a lot, you find out what you're good at, you grow as a writer, you learn who you want to work with, who it is that can challenge you to do better work. I think that sort of practical application, getting the theory, but then also practical application of it, lots of opportunities to collaborate with production students, with other students in other programs and see it made. I think that's the real strength of Chapman versus the other programs like Columbia that I went to, or USC where I taught for 13 years.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Our next question is for Veston. Is it helpful to take marketing classes along with PRA?
Certainly. Anything that, in fact, most our public relations and advertising majors have to take marketing for non-majors as part of the curriculum. So, and they also take digital marketing. We are now offering a course in social media marketing as well. So.
Great, thank you. Next question for Sally. How much collaboration is involved in the broadcast journalism program?
We have a huge amount of collaboration in both broadcast journalism and documentary. You know, we really try to sort of mimic in the program what you guys will be doing in real life. So in your first couple years where you're doing more basic and introductory level classes, you do a lot of solo projects, sort of learning the gear, learning the technical pieces of the craft, both broadcast and doc. And then as you move on within kind of your career here, you begin to do, you know, be involved in much larger productions, which is a huge amount of teamwork and collaboration, because that most closely mirrors what your experiences will be when you go into the field. People, you know, you're always part of a team if you're involved in broadcast journalism. And, you know, the other thing is that you're graduating with so many students who you've worked so closely with, usually over 4 years, and those end up being people who can hire you, and, you know, it creates a really nice cohort as you enter the field.
Awesome, thank you. This is a question for maybe everyone, but can these students do to best prepare for their first semester? Nam?
For film studies,
Mm-hmm.
maybe read a film history book. yeah, watch films and try to discuss it more in a, in a deeper way with your friends. And watching many films is always a good way to study films and think about, ask yourselves, what makes this film good, or what makes this film stand out? What is new about this film? Yeah, watch films. So there is 3 ways of way for cinephiles. It's watch films, write about films. You can end there, like me, write about films, and then if you're going to further, then you can make films.
Good answer. Nice. Thank you. Oh, Sally. Yeah, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I think for broadcast journalism and doc, really just being someone who's engaged in the world, you know, certainly watching pieces that are like what you want to be doing. But if you're going to be working in the world of nonfiction or fiction for that matter, but speaking specifically to nonfiction, you know, read the news, read the New York Times online daily, watch, you know, just take in content, know what's going on in the world and find something that you care about. You know, I think if we're going to be trying to tell real life stories that are relevant, we have to have a sense of what is actually going on. So yeah, you know, get those subscriptions, pay for the New York Times, whatever your news source is, but just always kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on out there.
You guys don't have to raise your hand. James, go ahead.
I'm on board. I would encourage for either film production and screenwriting and producing, whatever if you're coming in on that side of things, I would read as many screenplays as possible. And they're on the internet now. They're not, when I was in, I sound like such a geezer when I say this, but when I was in film school, like I had to go to the basement of the library to get a copy of American Graffiti to read it. And it was just like, I had to go into a room and wear gloves while I was reading the screenplay. And now I could probably just type in the title plus PDF plus screenplay, and then it would be there for me to read. So like, because you start to learn the grammar of how things are expressed to then be shot and displayed visually. Yeah, so read as much as possible, and then as you're reading and as you're watching, kind of track how you're feeling, and then start to ask yourself, what did they do to make me feel this way? Because there's a mechanics behind emotional manipulation, for lack of a better word.
Thank you. Paul, I saw you raise your hand before.
I'm just going to support what James just said. It's to read scripts. There's a lot of great screenwriting books out there as well, books about writing, but I'd say that they're actually less useful than actually finding like movies that really affected you, that you're moved by, that you really found hysterical, that there's something about it that you feel like that's something that I would like to do. Go online and download the scripts. They're so easily available now. It makes sense to read a lot of them. And they're not all the same. You'll learn different things from each one, but you will learn something from every single one. You'll get used to the format of writing, which is, screenwriting has its own kind of unique format and conventions, but you'll also start seeing what it is that makes a script kind of leap off the page, and you'll find yourself bursting out in laughter or tearing up while you're just reading a script off the screen of the computer. And that's the best way to do that, is just to simply start reading as many scripts as you possibly can before you come here in the fall, and then you're gonna be required to actually start writing scripts as well, and you won't have as much time to read once you're spending that time writing.
Thanks, Paul. Dustin?
I just didn't want to be left out. So I think if you're going into public relations and advertising, you need to be a consumer of the media. You need to be reading newspapers, watching the news, looking at ads, either in print and on television, even radio. You need to and start to identify the things that make you excited in those. But you really have to become a consumer and be prepared to work hard, and don't worry about the grade as much as being a sponge.
Thanks, Gal. So I am going to ask this next question, but I also want to invite you guys to ask more questions if you have some more for our faculty here. We're getting close to wrapping up, so I want to make sure that we get to y'all's questions if you have any more. Question for everyone. If you had one piece of advice from your freshman self in film school, what would it be? James?
Can I not go first? I have to
Okay.
think about that one for a
Sally?
minute.
I think that mine would be to really lean on your cohort, your colleagues and peers in school. You know, I think we kind of go through film school feeling like this is our film school journey and feeling like we're kind of making our films or projects in a vacuum, but the real world is just not that way. You know, you do need to get hired. Usually it's from someone that you know, or you want to hire someone good, and usually it's someone you know, or if it's someone who's come through Chapman, you know, they're going to have had a certain level of education. So yeah, I mean, it sounds silly and cliche, but that idea of kind of being a team player, really learn to work with others, because you are going to have to for any career in entertainment for the rest of your life. I think that's probably the big thing, and try to develop relationships with your cohort that feel deep and respectful, and relationships that you can carry for life. I look at our grads from the broadcast journalism and doc program, and I mean, so many of them are still working together. They're hiring each other. They're making films together, and that began in film school.
Vesson?
What I would tell myself as a freshman, enjoy. It's going to go by very quickly. But also, like I said before, be a sponge, be open to it. I had a boss who one time said, you have to have a gee whiz about you. You have to wonder why that works that way. What does that, you just have to have gee whiz and try to stay with that positive focus and have fun.
Paul?
I'd have to agree with Vesson about being open, like being open-minded, being open to everything. And I think when you have a question, you'll get answers. Don't necessarily just stop with the first answer. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion. You will learn a lot. There are lots and lots of different ways of doing things. And what you're looking for is to learn about everything, to find out what you're best at, to find out what you enjoy. If you can combine something that you really enjoy, that you really love, and it's something that you're good at, you can have, it's basically kind of like the famous mythologist Joseph Campbell talks about, make your hobby your career and you'll have a very great life. And if you can find something you love, become good enough at it that you can do that, you will have a really fulfilled life. And I think that if you come into college with that attitude, you will learn a huge amount, and then you'll have an opportunity to start living a truly kind of creative life where you're doing and creating many, many different things.
That's just straight life advice. That's awesome. Nam?
I would say I agree with all the other faculty members said. Then I would add, don't be shy to ask questions in class. Really, because there's nothing called stupid question in class. Your faculty member is ready to discuss anything with you. We are open to any questions. So I know, yeah, some students have really, really brilliant ideas, but they are sometimes too shy to speak up. But I would really, really encourage everyone to, open your mind and hearts and actively participate in discussions.
Yeah, James.
I have one now. I also just want to echo what Nam said, because what always happens at the end of class is I'll say, does anyone have any questions? And no one does. I'm like, okay, see you next week. And then everyone comes up and asks me a question. And I'm just like, everyone could have benefited from that if you just said it out loud. But I would say, I wish I'd learned this lesson, and I see it play out over and over again, is don't fall prey to imposter syndrome. When you get there and you think like a horrible mistake has been made, I don't know why they let me in. We're pretty good at picking who would be a good fit at Dodge and not. So if you're in, and just embrace that and run with it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. So we're going to put some links in the chat for you all. We have our Unibuddy link, which is an opportunity for you to communicate with current students in these programs. So if you want to directly message them, you can go there and search by the program and then choose a student to chat with. They all work in my office, so they're happy to assist you. And then we're also going to put our Dodge admissions email address. So if you do have any questions, if you want to know more about the programs, you're more than welcome to email us there. We're happy to help you too. And that's about it for this evening. Faculty members, any final regards? Sally?
Just to feel free to reach out. Absolutely. If you have any questions at all, we have a bunch of student sample films on the website. You guys can take a look at those, see what you think. And yeah, hope to meet you all in the fall.
This is kind of a particular Southern California thing, but parking is very easy at Dodge. I saw a hand go up.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh, Zaid.
Hi, sorry, last minute question here.
Sure.
What does it look like in terms of coming back to in-person learning in Dodge?
I am not an epidemiologist. However, I would say I am incredibly confident that by the fall, things will be, if not completely back to normal, very close to that. So officially, we're coming back slowly in the spring. The summer can be, the classes are going to be in person, but there's also going to be a hybrid option for anyone who's here over the summer. And I know the university plans to be fully back in person in the fall. So that is my prediction.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Justin, Nam, Paul.
Well, that's it. We look forward to meeting you.
Awesome.
Same here too.
Thanks, Nam.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank
All
you.
right.